The views and opinions on the Craig L. Hayes Show do not necessarily reflect those of Westgate Resorts ownership or management. And now, on with the show.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Get your copies while they last. Stop the presses.
And now for something completely different.
Are you ready for a little truth? Are we not entertained? Wisdom is the proper use of knowledge and experience. There are no safe spaces here. The truth shall make you free. It's showtime! So you want the truth, but can you handle the truth? Well, here's another fine mess you've gotten us into. Now that's entertainment. Enlighten me a little. What you say is quite logical. And what did we learn? Prepare yourself for a little sensory overload. I came here for the truth. 7 years ago, stand by the roll show intro. Roll show intro in 3, 2, 1, go.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, and listeners all around this planet we call home. This is the Craig L. Hayes Show. I am Craig L. Hayes, and it is the 14th of January, 2025, and we're continuing on our series of behind-the-scenes entertainment talk, and we are doing this from the Westgate Resort in Las Vegas, in the International Showroom, and in Elvis Presley's dressing room from way back when. And Barry Manilow's private dressing room is right next door to us. Anyhow, in way of taking care of some business here and showing my thankfulness and gratitude, I want to just say again how thankful I am to Cammie Christensen, the president of the hotel. She has granted us permission to do this show from Elvis's dressing room, along with Dawn Rawl. She is the vice president of marketing and entertainment, and she is on board with this also, and as is John Peer, the technical and entertainment director. Thank you guys and gals for letting me do this show from this and talk about showbiz and the history of entertainment in this town and at this hotel also. Today we're going to be back with Talbot Snow. We've done about 8 episodes with him. No one's done more than him and I on this. He's been my business partner, best friend for 45 years now.
Don't forget Cellmate, too.
Cellmate, yeah, we did that time at Leavenworth, yeah. And all those other prisons we went and did, yeah. Yeah, but we're going to continue talking. When him and I do our shows, we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. And eventually today we may even talk a little bit about religious theology in one of the later episodes today.
Ooh.
And just talk about something you're always told, don't talk about politics and don't talk about religion on shows. So I am glad to talk about politics or religion because I like learning about both and I have opinions on both. And I'm not afraid to express it, regardless if it annoys people. So, anyhow, today, this first episode, though, we're going to talk a little bit more about show business and the studio and the time in there. Then the second episode, we're going to actually play one of the songs from our album, Contrary to Popular Belief, that was released in '93, and play a song and then talk about the production and what it took to put that song together, because that was an awesome song to do also. And then on the third show, we may just delve into some taboo. So, yeah. So anyways, Talbot, welcome back to the show. This is the 9th episode you've been in on.
My name is James Brown, and Talbot's not here right now.
And I want to jump back and kiss myself. Ow.
No. So, yeah, glad to be back with my main man, Craigus Maximus.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
That's my name again. Yeah, so let's talk about the studio because you know you and I, boy, the history we've talked about so much stuff on the history of what we've done over all these years and such. And
I have a real quick little side. thing.
give it.
You said when you said on these shows we're not supposed to talk about religion, politics, etc. A few years ago, I went to interview Mayor Goodman, and she took me up to her, the top level of the city hall glass building they have downtown. Beautiful office. I mean, you could park a plane in that thing. It was like the top floor, the whole top floor, And anyway, she greeted me at the door, and she recognized me because I've shot her a few times here and there.
Meaning photography, not a shot
Right.
or
Yeah, I didn't try to shoot her like
I
like,
got you. Okay.
like Donald Trump or anything, but and so but she doesn't really know me by name. I've just worked with her a few times here and there. She knows 10,000 people, right? So she goes. She opens the door, welcomes me, and she goes, "Hi, I'm. You're the photographer, and your name is?" And I said, "Oh, I'm Talbot Snow." And I said, "And your name is?" And she like had a brief
The pause.
pause, like,
Yeah.
"What? You don't know who I am?" And then we go into her office, and we set up the camera. It was actually a video interview, and she goes, "All right, just before we begin, we don't talk about sex, God, or politics." Yeah. And I thought, okay, whatever. So we roll camera and go, all right, so Mayor Goodman, I'd like to talk about sex, God, and politics. And she looks at me like, and I said, I'm just kidding. We'll erase that part. Anyway, just,
Yeah.
throw her off a little bit. But Carolyn was always been a very, at least for me, a very playful, fun individual to, even though she's the mayor or has been. And, she got a nice, good sense of humor.
Good. You would hope they do.
Yeah.
Come on. Don't take life so seriously. I mean, you got a serious job you got to do, but don't take it so serious that you have to be, a Debbie Downer on stuff always. Life is supposed to be a little bit fun no matter what position you're doing it in. So, anyways, we were talking a little bit more about the studio. So,
Yep. Sound masters.
yeah. So when last time we talked, we pretty well stopped at 93, somewhere in that range, because we were talking about this album. We're going to go back to that. But since 93, 94, 5, in that range, you went from basically we had that, the 1-inch 16-track reel to reel and such.
Yep.
And then we've moved then you went to the Pro Tools.
Well, no. There was a couple steps along the
Oh,
way.
did you? Okay.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
So we had the Tascam 16-track reel-to-reel, as you just said.
Yep.
Great machine. Took a lot of use and abuse over the years. And we talked last time about how we linked it with the MIDI time clock and had it playing along with the SMPTE track that we striped. And it would play along with the MIDI sequencers that we had playing along with it, which allowed us to expand our track range. So I had that for a while, and then I don't know exactly when. I'll have to look in my diary if I have one. But I started using ADATs, the ADAT digital recorders. They were modular 8-track players, digital. They used ones and zeros instead of just, they still used tape. They actually used VHS format tapes, but they printed, ones and zeros on that tape instead of
Not true digital audio tape,
right
but just recorded digital numbers onto normal VHS tape.
tapes, right? And they were pretty cool. I mean, it was like all of a sudden with the digital realm, you didn't have a whole lot of or all those wonderful noises that we associate with analog equipment.
Yep. Tape hiss. That's what they call it.
Yeah.
Tape hiss.
And And you could link them, because they were modular. Each machine had 8 tracks. So if you bought another machine, they could play along with each other in sync. And you'd have 16 tracks. And get another third machine, you'd have 24.
Yep.
At one point, I had like 6 machines, which gave me, 48?
48 tracks, yeah.
48 tracks. And so that was fun. That was cool. I also had a machine called a computer editing software, hardware combination called Soundscape. And that linked to a Windows PC. And so when I was using ADATs, I could take a track or two and offload it into Soundscape and do some pretty crude on-screen editing with that track, like if I was going to fix a vocal or something like that. That was like the precursor for me to Pro Tools.
Yeah, okay.
And then, what else? Was there anything else? Well, we had the DAT players. We already talked about that. And got a CD burner somewhere along the way. I remember one time when CD burners were like, tens of thousands of dollars, right? And then, thankfully, they came down in price. And then at some point, computers started, migrating in. And you could burn CDs on computers. Whoa.
Yeah.
But then after ADATs came, if I'm not forgetting anything else, then came Pro Tools, which was fully computerized. And that's where we left behind dedicated recording machines and used computers. The thing about Pro Tools that was cool was that you had hardware and software. You would put the hardware component, some of it fit into the back of your computer. In this case, I had Apple Macs, and we would put those things, we call them farm cards, into the back of the PCI slots. And that's how the Pro Tools hardware interfaced with the computer. And then Pro Tools itself had some dedicated pieces of hardware, like the I/O box, the ins and outs, the preamps, and they had a clock, rack mount, universal clock that put out all kinds of different clock formats. And they had like a mic pre, different pieces you could buy, rack mounted pieces. And then everything you could see and control on the actual main host computer screen. So that was, you could see your multi-tracks. For me, that was a bloody revelation, because now we could see things. We could see our audio, in a sense, right? On the screen, you could see the waveforms, and you could
manipulate those and move them around, and
and you put your songs on a grid, a timing grid, and break it up by bars, and you could slice and dice and copy and paste and duplicate and do all kinds of wonderful things that you could never do or not as easily anyway, with the old analog tape, let alone the ADAT. So that was fun, and I was one of the first guys in Las Vegas to have Pro Tools. Period. I know this for a fact.
Well, number one, the cost of that thing is...
Yeah. So when I mentioned my wonderful parents, right? Not only did they put up with all this BS in their, with the garage band in their living room, the DJ rig in their living room, then the band rehearsal room, which then became the recording studio in their garage, but they also co-signed on a one of the loans. There were several loans along the way to make all this happen, because I didn't have 20, 30, whatever, 40 grand sitting in my back pocket. So my parents co-signed on a home equity loan to allow me to continue buying more stuff. And I mean, how many parents would do that?
None that were sane. Yeah, yeah. You want me to put my house at risk for you to buy more audio gear? You know that Craig guy that you used to hang out with all the time? All you guys did was buy audio gear. Are you crazy? We're not buying anymore.
Well, I tell you, I was going to, at the time I was going to UNLV, and I was working at a car wash. Did you know me then?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
And so I was making, I wasn't making a whole lot of money, but I did actually pay for all of my own college because, it wasn't super expensive back then.
No.
And I had gone through a few semesters, never finished, might finish one day in the future. But I had already gone a few semesters. Actually, I have like 50, 60, 70 college credits sitting there doing nothing. Probably outdated now, but
UNLV thanks you for your contribution to their fund.
and my dad kind of felt bad about that. So he said, "You know what, Talbot? I haven't, we haven't contributed anything to your college fund. Let us do this for you." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do that." And being young and dumb and not understanding, the full risk of it all, I was like, "Yeah, let's just do it." And so my dear old mom and dad, they co-signed on another loan for me to get some more gear. Now, I researched, and in Las Vegas, I got to think about what year this was. This was mid-90s, maybe?
Okay, the album came out in 93, 94. Then you went to the ADATs. Yeah. So basically in the mid-90s, late 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was researching how to get Pro Tools. I noticed, so I went around to some of the different studios in Vegas, and they were all using, either reel-to-reel or ADATs, or if they were using computers, it was something like Cubase or Cakewalk or Paris or SAW, SAW.
Yeah.
No one had Pro Tools that I knew of, and I had asked around. I had asked different people I knew in the business, and no one seemed to have it. But I noticed as I was looking on album credits to some of my favorite albums, sometimes in the credits would say mixed, or mastered on Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And these are studios in L.A. and New York, and I thought, I'm seeing this Pro Tools name pop up a lot. maybe I should get a Pro Tools system. And no one here in Vegas had it, and I couldn't even buy it here. It wasn't available to buy in Las Vegas. So I started calling to L.A., down to Phoenix, trying to talk to somebody who knew something about it. It was like a mystery as far as Las Vegas was concerned. And some of the people I talked to locally said, "Oh, no, don't do Pro Tools. It's called Slow Tools," because I guess in those days the computers were pretty slow.
Yeah.
And so, since Pro Tools was computer-based, I guess it was kind of slow in its first, few versions. But anyway, and they also said it was, abhorrently expensive.
Well, both of those are true. It would be slow because computers were not fast back then. What are you talking? I remember when people used to think, "Man, I can't wait till I get that. My new computer is going to be at 100 and something meg operating speed." Now if you're not operating at 3+ gig,
gigahertz.
you're not running it at all.
Right.
And then the same thing is Pro Tools. Now on today's dollars, I don't know what Pro Tools cost today, but back in 2000, we'll just call it 2000. What you paid for it, 25 or whatever grand, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it was. And I was, kind of flying blind. I was just going off of magazine articles. We used to, I remember you and I used to browse through Mix
magazine.
magazine like it was a Playboy or something.
Yeah. Looking at all that stuff and going, ooh, ah.
All that.
You want us to play with your knobs, don't you? Yeah.
So I was going off of magazine articles and what scant information I could find here and there. And I ended up having to buy most of that stuff out of state. There was a guy, you remember Richard Lenz?
Yes.
He actually became one of the first dealers in Vegas for Digidesign / Avid, who are the makers of Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And so
I didn't know that. I didn't know Richard was doing that.
yeah, well, he's always been some, kind of a sales rep kind of guy.
Yep.
So I was able to buy some things from him, but he kind of came in after I had already started, buying and building. But he came in along the way, and I was able to buy more stuff through him. And he was a good help because he knew a lot of stuff about those kind of things. It was nice to have a local guy to finally talk to. And I remember, again, going to other studios here and there, because I've gone to other studios for various reasons. Sometimes I've had clients that bounce between studios and or a project that, is bouncing between studios, and sometimes I'd have to go visit. And I'd talk to some of the other studio owners, and they would say, "Oh, how did you afford that?" As talking about it like as if it was millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, it's a lot of money, but it wasn't like millions of dollars. It wasn't hundreds of thousands of dollars even. It was tens of thousands,
Yeah.
which is still a good chunk of dough."
Good chunk of dough. Yeah.
So anyway, I know for a fact that I was one of the very first guys to have Pro Tools in Vegas, and
Because I can't think of anybody else in there besides recording studios that would even have it. I mean, TV stations, radio stations, they don't really have a need for anything like that. They probably have, some of them have it now.
Yeah.
Or some version, maybe a slighter version or something like that. They don't need all the bells and whistles when they're making commercials or something, but maybe they have the full thing now. I don't know.
I was told straight up by several experts here in Vegas that I was an absolute idiot for buying Pro Tools. Why? Why do it? Why? And my thing was, look on all the major albums. That's what everyone's recording or editing or mixing on nowadays. They might start with, a multi-track tape machine. I mean, some big studios still use analog tape machines to this day.
Yep.
But then they end up digitizing it so they can edit it.
Yeah, it all goes and gets digitized eventually. I mean, you like the tape because it keeps that warmth, and if you put tube amps on your vocals and stuff, it keeps that warm sound. Well, some of that will translate through to digital. Not all of it though.
Right.
Not unless you're sampling it, 100 and whatever, yeah,
A gabillion, zillion.
yeah, Meg or K or whatever it is on there. So,
So anyway, that's and I think if anyone else did own it in Vegas, no one really. It was more of like a private studio thing, or some wealthy dentist had a Pro Tools system sitting in his basement or something like that. But as far as studios go and general knowledge, I was the only one. So I was like out on the kind of like I felt like I was on my own when it came to any kind of technical issues. I couldn't call anyone, except Richard Lenz. And but at first he wasn't around either. So I felt like I was just all on my own, and I would have to try and glean some information from somebody in LA or Phoenix. So I was just kind of stabbing in the dark. But anyway, here we are. What is it? 30 years later. Is it?
20, roughly 20, yeah.
Um,
And you still have your Pro Tools setup.
yeah. Well, I've upgraded it a few times. It's gone through a few iterations.
It's hard to believe that a computer program needs some updates. That's weird.
Yeah, and they've like most computer-based companies, they have jumped on that bandwagon of we'd like you to update every 6 months, but you can't do that unless you're Bill Gates and you've got all kinds of money.
And I've always noticed it even with anything you're doing on an update. Yeah, they may have figured out a way to fix one little problem with it, but then they open up the door and then you got all these other things that don't work as well now.
Yeah.
So you're constantly updating and changing, but you're chasing your tail constantly.
Yep.
And that's one thing, my biggest complaint. You have these 12-year-old computer programmers at these companies that keep on saying, well, I'm going to fix it like this. They do, and then they mess up something else because I'm sorry, but it works. It was fine. Leave it
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and now, fast forward to 2025, now that whole thing of updating has become, almost a weekly racket. I mean,
Yeah.
they just want you to update this and update that. And everyone's jumped on that bandwagon, Apple, Microsoft, everyone.
Yeah.
Your phone, you know, as soon it's going to be your car, your smart house.
Well, you can laugh, but that's what it is. Even your car's going to want you to sign in,
Yeah,
onto the internet
yeah,
and into your Wi-Fi when you pull into the house and go, oh, we have to update this and this and this.
yeah. I can imagine arguing with a toilet that's, a digital toilet that will not let you, won't open the lid when you really have to go, and it's sorry, but your subscription is not current.
Yeah, and you need to update your lid opening device.
I mean, that day is coming.
Yeah, it's like that's why these guys got, like I said, too many 12-year-olds doing the programming.
Yeah,
These guys that all they've ever done is sit in their mom's basement, basically, or hidden in their room. If you threw a baseball to them, it'd hit them in the face because they don't know how to catch, type of stuff. All they know how to do is just sit on a computer and.
yeah. Well, that plus they have their, I'm going to get real sarcastic here. Their little soirees, their parties they get together, and everybody's sleeping with everybody, and drinking coffee and Red Bulls and saying, "Gee, let's do this and let's do that. Isn't that cool? Like this, we've changed this program entirely all around. Now we put this button over here and this button over there. We've taken, the thing that everyone really loved. We're going to get rid of that function, and we're going to add a function they don't really want or need, and we're going to reorganize the layout of the window so that the thing that they had mastered and figured out before, they'll have to learn all over again. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, and then they'll really like us because they want to spend all their life on their computer too, trying to figure out how to run this stuff. Not just use our stuff to make a living. Yeah, that's my problem with these people, morons.
Yeah. And then too, of course, not all the upgrades are free, and most of them are not. They have ways to charge you for this or that in the front door or the back door or whatever, and so, yeah. So, but going back to my Pro Tools, I've updated it probably once every few years, and I'm probably going to do that again here in the next year or so. Is the goal.
Just let me know when you go do that, and I'll download all my stuff so it doesn't get affected.
Well, when it comes to the data of all the projects, I do have those on separate external hard drives, and I keep duplicates.
That's good.
So, in most cases, if the computer crashes and dies, I'll have at least 99% of the stuff.
So we got about 5 minutes left in this episode, and you're thinking about doing a new upgrade. So just real quick, what's the upgrade going to be? You're talking about in the next year doing another expansion upgrade, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, yeah, it's a little bit of a mixed bag, I guess. Again, Pro Tools has got on the Avid now. It used to be DigiDesign. They have it all pretty much. Well, they have it subscription based. I think you can buy it outright, but they push for subscription based. So you pay per month, like so many people are doing these days. And so, so whatever latest, greatest version we're up to now, I don't know if it's Pro Tools 12, 13, 14, whatever it is, and, have a more current I.O. box, just got slightly better specs. Although, the specs I have now are great. I can do 192 kilohertz, and what is it, 32-bit.
That's pretty transparent. That's
Even now. But they, I guess the newer machines have a little bit more, I don't know, dynamics or something, headroom maybe. It's like cutting whiskers almost.
These are things we're talking about, just minor improvements, but wanting to charge you monthly or another $25,000 upgrade to something that's, a $10 improvement basically.
Yeah, so I'm going to be very careful.
Yeah,
I'm going to be
that's
very
the problem
careful.
there.
I'm way more picky and selective these days about what I buy, and I don't just grab the latest, greatest everything. Yeah. And I want to make it very simple. The new system's going to have, I think, is going to have a complete, touchscreen situation. So mixers with knobs will be gone.
I can't conceive that, but that's okay. Yeah.
And it'll all be on these big screens that you can touch. So we'll see. It's going to be, I'm going to keep the old system intact, and I'm going to turn around in the main mix room and build another one facing the old one.
What's the new console you're looking at?
It's called a Raven.
A Raven. It's a very cool looking setup. You get that. That's going to be you're going to be yelling like the Starship Enterprise on that thing, man.
Yeah. My wife and I, Javiera, she wants to do a complete remodel of the studio. So we'll see how that goes too.
Yeah.
Like give it a different look and clear out some of the old stuff and because I use part of it I have some storage area in there that's tucked away behind red curtains and kind of clean that all up but so you'll go in there. My vision is that you'll face one way and you'll have the system that I have right now. Face the other way, you'll have the new system, and gradually then I'll phase out the old and phase in the new. So that'll be a process, probably a year or two.
Yeah, it's going to take you a while. But and very cool.
Yeah, it and with that will come some future ability, because some of the gear I have right now is literally 30 years old, and it still works. And I haven't, so it works, and some of my computers are 15 years old and still working.
Yeah.
But I also have current stuff. I have more recent computers and toys and whatnot. But
I'll tell you what, that's a big endorsement to Mac G4s. Computer, man. Those things just run and run and run,
Yeah, I don't know if their newer machines are as robust,
I would think not. I think they want to sell more, computers than one that lasts 15 years. They'd like to sell you 5 over that same time period,
Yeah,
so, that's just what it is.
I am looking at new Macs as well. I'm researching some of that right now. So that's what's coming as far as that goes, and some new cameras, for the video production side of things.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, we're looking forward to that happening and doing some work with you when that all does happen. So, yeah. All right, so we're going to take and conclude this episode and move on to the next one in about 5 minutes after we have another drink of Pepsi and Coca-Cola or whatever we got here in the big gulp cups here. So until then, you can go ahead and say this.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.